Cold War, a global struggle for power and people. Welcome and thank you for joining us. The Cold War might seem like a dusty page in history books, but its echoes still ripple through today's headlines, from nuclear brinkmanship to shifting alliances. Understanding this pivotal era offers us not just a glimpse into the past, but a lantern to navigate present complexities and shape a more peaceful future. Why revisit the Cold War now? Because many of today's geopolitical dramas, rivalries, regional flashpoints, and nuclear talks are tied with threads spun in that long, tense saga. Delving into this story sharpens our compass for what lies ahead. Chapter 1: Origins of the Cold War. In 1945, World War II's guns fell silent, yet peace was tentative, more a paused breath than a deep sigh. The Soviet Union, scarred by nearly 27 million lost lives, stitched a protective quilt of satellite states over Eastern Europe. Meanwhile, the United States strode forward as a global titan, armed with nuclear power and championing capitalism, democracy, and free markets. The Soviet Union, with its communist banner, marched a parallel but divergent path, favoring state control and one-party rule. This ideological fork bred suspicion and fear, a mistrust so thick it practically fogged diplomacy. Winston Churchill's 1946 Iron Curtain speech painted the division, a line slicing Europe between two worlds. NATO's 1949 birth and the Warsaw Pact's 1955 counterpoint cemented the battlefield's layout. The United States met Soviet ambitions with the Truman Doctrine, pledging aid to resist communism, and the Marshall Plan, rebuilding war-ravaged Western economies like a gardener restoring a tattered garden. In 1961, East Germany's Berlin Wall arose, not just concrete and wire, but a stark symbol carving families and ideals apart. United States and Soviet tanks stared each other down at Checkpoint Charlie, a tense standoff that, while brief, symbolized just how fragile peace was. When the wall finally fell in 1989, it wasn't just bricks tumbling. It was a curtain lifting on a new world order. But while the two superpowers dodged direct war, their rivalry spilled into distant lands and battles fought by others. And at what cost? Chapter 2: Proxy Wars and Global Flashpoints. Determined to avoid all-out war, the Cold War morphed into a global game of chess with proxy battles across continents. The Korean War, 1950 to 1953, was a grim chapter, pitting communist North Korea, backed by China and the USSR, against South Korea supported by the United States, with millions caught in the crossfire. The 1962 Cuban Missile Crisis ended through a tense negotiated settlement involving the removal of United States missiles from Turkey and Soviet withdrawal from Cuba, averting nuclear war. Vietnam's conflict stretched from 1955 to 1975, a tragic saga where ideology clashed with jungle warfare, splitting a nation and igniting global debate, as the USSR provided substantial military and economic support to North Vietnam, while the United States backed South Vietnam with troops, supplies, and strategic aid. Meanwhile, the space race captured imaginations worldwide as a thrilling contest of technological prowess and prestige, symbolizing Cold War rivalry both militarily and culturally. From Sputnik's beep in 1957 to Apollo 11's moonwalk in 1969, outer space became another high-stakes theater of competition. Eastern Europe's uprisings, the 1956 Hungarian Revolution and 1968 Prague Spring, were forcefully suppressed, followed by political normalization policies seeking to reassert Soviet control. Proxy wars and political tremors echoed Latin America, Africa, and the Middle East, reshaping governments and lives under the shadow of superpower interests. But how did these distant battles across Asia, Africa, and the Middle East steer the Cold War's course and change millions of lives caught in the crossfire. Chapter 3: The Middle East and Global Cold War Conflicts. The Middle East was more than a regional chessboard. It was a kiln forging geopolitical tremors felt worldwide. In 1953, the United States and Britain engineered a coup in Iran, dethroning nationalist Prime Minister Mossadegh to keep Western oil flowing and the Shah in power. The 1956 Suez Crisis erupted when Egypt nationalized the canal, prompting Britain, France, and Israel to intervene militarily, only to be pulled back by the weight of international pressure, including an unlikely coalition of the United States and the USSR. Arab-Israeli wars in 1967 and 1973 redrew borders and heightened tensions, while the 1973 oil embargo turned the world's fuel gauges toward crisis. 1979 marked upheaval. The Soviet invasion of Afghanistan plunged the region into decades of conflict, pitting United States Mujahideen against Red Army forces. Iran's Islamic Revolution that same year reshaped alliances and deepened hostilities, especially with the United States during the embassy hostage crisis. South Asia, too, was caught in Cold War currents, with neighboring India and Pakistan navigating their own fraught relationship amid superpower rivalries. India's close ties with Moscow deepened with the 1971 Indo-Soviet Treaty of Peace, Friendship, and Cooperation, granting strategic support during the Bangladesh Liberation War and marking a significant Cold War alignment. Pakistan, meanwhile, aligned with Washington and Beijing, making South Asia a crucial Cold War chessboard. Meanwhile, the non-aligned movement, championed by leaders such as Yugoslavia's Josip Broz Tito, India's Jawaharlal Nehru, Egypt's Gamal Abdel Nasser, Indonesia's Sukarno, and Ghana's Kwame Nkrumah, sought a third way. Their aim was to assert sovereignty and avoid being pawns in the United States-Soviet struggle, crafting a vision of peaceful coexistence and cooperation between nations. Beyond the Middle East, Cold War tremors reshaped Asia with China's Communist Revolution in 1949, when Mao Zedong established the People's Republic of China, stirred proxy clashes in Southeast Asia, and scarred Africa and Latin America with wars and coups. This chapter reminds us that the Cold War was not a single stage, but a sprawling global drama, with the Middle East and non-aligned nations key actors amid a worldwide performance. Yet behind the headlines and power plays, what did life feel like for the everyday person? Chapter 4: The Human Experience. The Cold War's geopolitical storms brought profound human consequences. In Western Europe and the United States, post-war prosperity flourished, yet life unfolded under the shadow of possible nuclear annihilation. In America, McCarthyism fueled suspicion where mere allegations of communist ties could ruin reputations and careers. Across the Iron Curtain, everyday life in the Eastern Bloc was defined by long queues for bread and meat, chronic shortages, censorship shaping culture, and restricted travel. Families crowded into prefabricated apartment blocks while surveillance and propaganda reinforced communist ideology. Yet amid repression, communities endured, supported by public transit, free healthcare, and universal education. Beyond Europe, Cold War rivalries reshaped lives across the global South. In South Asia, conflicts, from the partition scars to Bangladesh's birth through war, left refugees in deep trauma. In the Middle East, millions bore the weight of recurring wars and oil embargoes. Latin America endured dictatorships, often empowered or opposed depending on Cold War alignment. Africa's independence movements were entangled in proxy wars and civil strife, fueled by superpower rivalries. Across continents and cultures, the Cold War's legacy is etched into families divided, freedoms curtailed, and communities fractured, but also into resilience, adaptation, and the hope for a more peaceful future. Legacy, lessons, and closing. The Cold War officially ended in 1991 with the dissolution of the Soviet Union, yet its shadows linger. NATO stands as a guardian born of that era. Nuclear weapons remain potent reminders. Regional conflicts rooted in those years persist. Yet arms control treaties like the Strategic Arms Limitation Talks, SALT, and the Intermediate Range Nuclear Forces Treaty, INF, emerged, and inspiring movements such as the fall of apartheid and global peace efforts remind us change is possible. This history teaches how fear, ideology, and ambition shape human destinies, often with profound, unintended consequences. As we face today's challenges, complex, interconnected, and daunting, understanding the Cold War's lessons is vital. They call on us to embrace dialogue, prudence, and unwavering hope. Thank you for walking this journey through history with us. May it inspire us all to work relentlessly toward enduring peace and a shared understanding that transcends division.